1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning and welcome to the glorious sunrise safari on this beautiful morning on Djuma, Arathusa and Cheetah Plains Game Reserves in the Sabi Sands area of the Greater Kruger National Park of South Africa. And we are coming to you live. In other words, we cannot script, we cannot plan, we cannot edit. We simply bring you raw and untamed views of the wildlife of this area, an area famous for all of its extraordinary creatures. As you can see, Wiem and myself bundled up. You can't see Wiem, but although Viem's quite stoic actually when it comes to the cold. He's not nearly as bundled up as Brian might usually be. Yes, in midwinter. Wiem says wait till we see him in midwinter. Absolutely. As you can see, it's been cold enough to break out the gloves and the beanie. Let's try and pop that beanie back down again. Interesting thing, of course, about wearing a beanie in high winter is that as a safari guide, having your ears free can be a very useful thing. So I've got to sort of tuck it behind my ear, looking something akin to an elf, in order to be able to hear whilst keep my head warm at the same time. Sam will be out a little bit later with Dave. He's just having some teething problems on Rusty. And I believe that James will be out on bushwalk as well. So we should have 3 of us roaming the area, looking for all kinds of extraordinary things. And while we cruise along our northern boundary to the east, hopefully we'll get a nice view of the sunrise at some point. Just to update you a little bit on my plans. Last night, as I was going to bed, I heard a leopard calling far away from where I live, probably close to Buffelshoek Dam. So my plan is to check that area first to see if maybe Tingana has decided to come and investigate the presence of that new male Gajima in what is essentially a portion of his territory. Tingana, of course, being much larger, but Gajima being younger and showing clear signs of wanting to establish himself in this particular part of Djuma. Hopefully we'll have a chance to see him. And while we do that, don't forget that you can send your questions through on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email them through to questions@wildearth.tv. And for the moment, please, if you are sending an email question through, please do it by opening up and creating a whole new email in your normal email way, if that makes any sense. So rather than clicking on the link, if you are sending an email, you can send it through, type in questions@wildearth.tv in that particular address bar of your normal email account. And you seem to be experiencing the odd problem when it comes to emails. It's at that turning point of the morning where the spotlight is no longer a help but a hindrance, only illuminating the bushes on either side. Oh dear, I appear to be trying to pull my beanie down so that I look a little bit less like an awareness-raising cartoon prophylactic. This may have to go at some point. This is driving me mad. Oh no, this definitely isn't going to work. We'll have to find a new solution. I'll just have to have a chilly head for now. That's okay. My head, in general, was not really designed for beanies. It's never been able to hold a beanie in a good place or a good shape. Checking really carefully along this boundary. When I heard Tingana call, I think he was around a central road. The Safari Dean has suggested that I look bundled up already for a snow day. And yes, we don't really tend to handle our chilly weather all that well. As South Africans, we tend to be, sorry, just checking something out there. It was just a log. We tend to be a little bit, well, okay, personally, I tend to be a bit of a wuss when it comes to the cold, as you well know. We're basically, this is to me the equivalent of Arctic temperatures at 15 degrees centigrade, which is, what's that, 59 in Fahrenheit. So we haven't even really hit the low 50s yet in Fahrenheit, and I'm still being an absolute sook. Is sook a South African word? I think it might be. Basically means the same thing as a pansy or a wuss. But that being said, driving along with the wind chill factor certainly will add to your chilliness of your everyday morning. And particularly if we think we have it bad, we've got the shelter of the car. The poor cameramen sitting behind us have to get the full brunt of the wind passing by, which is why we start our morning driving at a sedate pace. And driving along, presumably at a sedate pace as well, is Samwise, and he would like to say good morning. So let's head over to him.
Good morning, everyone. It's 15 degrees and 59 Fahrenheit. It is freezing this morning. Welcome to Safari Live. It's going to be Sam, Chevalier and Dave that will be taking you around this morning. We're on the rusty bucket, which means we have the privilege of making our way back to Cheetah Plains in the latter part of the morning. But at the moment we've just come down to a very, very cold part of the reserve here, and we're at Treehouse Dam. So we're just going to see if we can see something lurking around here. If there's anything, it might just pop its head out. But Jamie said she heard a leopard on the property yesterday, and it could very well have been in this area, moving up towards Central, which is more to the eastern side of our property. And there were also lions being heard, but we saw a male lion last night, and James was also with male lions last night. So this could still very well be on our property, or to the property more east of us, which is Torchwood. So we're hoping to slowly bumble and make our way in that direction. So let's make our way and see what we might be able to find on this young morning. Hopefully the sun will pop its head up and we'll be able to get a good shot of that sunrise before we really start the morning. As you can see, there's some male impala over here, and they are also looking cold. Look at those dark coats on top of them there. You can see they look a lot darker than usual. That's because they puff their fur up in this cold to keep themselves warm. So it is a very chilly morning. And they are grazing, as you can see. So beautiful male bachelor herd down by Treehouse Dam. First animals of the morning. Let's see what else we might be able to find on this fine day. Yesterday was so much fun. Honestly, I haven't had so much fun in an afternoon in a long time. It's just incredible to watch something come out of a thicket. You know, when we were sitting at Cheetah Plains, we just looked in the binoculars, and next thing, the most beautiful male lion that I haven't seen before, which we don't really know which male it was. We were chatting about it with the guides last night. They needed to have a good look at it, so we'll have a good look after breakfast this morning in pictures. But it could very well have been the Matimba male, or one of the Charlestons. We don't think it was one of the Birmingham boys, so we'll have to find out a little bit later what male lion that is. Or we go to Cheetah Plains now and see if we can relocate on that male. But the chances are that that male lion just crossed into Cheetah Plains at around 5-6 in the evening, so it was still a whole night to go ahead of it, so we don't know if it will still be on Cheetah Plains, but it's always worth having a look, just exploring the area to see what might still be there. We do know that wildebeest herd was on the plains there, as well as that smallish herd of buffalo. So anything could have happened on Tune Plains last night. So it will definitely be worth having a look to see if we can find something. But this morning, myself and Dave are also quite keen to see a leopard. So yesterday we managed to see 3 of the big 5. We saw an elephant, we saw buffalo, and we saw that beautiful male lion. So we would love to see a leopard. It would make us very, very happy. Hey Dave?
Oh yes.
Oh yes. And all of you, I suspect. I know Gerard, if that's the way in which I pronounce your name, Gerard, wanted to see a leopard yesterday. And we said, we shall do our very best to find you a leopard. And we ended up finding a male lion. But let's see if we can meet your wish to see a leopard this morning. And that's why we'll bumble slowly. Yes, Anna Marie, Elvis is ready for the drive today. As you can see, he's actually, let's put him forward. There we go. Elvis is in a forward direction this morning, Anna Marie, and hopefully he'll be able to spot anything that might be lurking. So I'm quite worried about this press stick because it's actually not that sticky. So I'm scared I'm not like watching Elvis properly and he falls off the side of the car. Hopefully he won't. But Anna Marie, he's with us. Oh no, he's fallen down. You know what? I'm gonna put him in a new place. You know what? When I'm off air, I'll get a nice position for him. I can't really stick him on right now. I'll put Elvis in a nice position to see if he can spot anything that might be lurking around us this morning. But my hands are freezing. Oh, they're so cold. Oh no, let's go this way. Got a feeling we should go and have a look here. What would be a good idea is if we go down towards our break, our cut line, and just see if any male leopard or even a female in cubs, such as our favorite Karula, might have crossed into our area. Ooh, James is out on his bushwalk. Let's go and say hello to James.
And here's a view. Here we go. Good morning everybody and welcome to this morning's dawn bush walk. My name is James Henry. On camera today we have Brian Joubert and his very cold thumb. It's a chilly morning today. I am wearing a jersey because, well, I'm just very cold. Brian is not, and how are you feeling, Brian?
Very cold.
Yes, Brian will be wearing a jersey next time. He's not wearing a jersey because our security detail, Stefan Winterboer, aka the Mystic Boer for the day, suggested that we don't wear jerseys because we'll become warm. Yes, that might be the case at 10 o'clock this morning. For right now, it remains cold. The beautiful sun is about to peep up over the horizon, but I think we've probably got another 20 minutes before that happens in this particular area. And the sort of course of the morning's activities are going to be us wandering down towards the southwest and at least eastern fringes of the reserve, see if we can pick up some tracks of, well, whatever. I'm hoping to see if we can find some tracks of Karula, our favourite female leopard, aged 12, 2 babies in tow. That would be marvellous. I have lost my stick. It might be in my room, I'm not sure, so I found this temporary option. It looks like a sort of a vicious version of a Harry Potter wand. I've no doubt it will be replaced as the course of the walk goes on. You are most welcome, and please do ask us questions as we go, just like with the drives. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at wildearth.tv. I'm assuming all of that is working. Is that correct, Kirsten? Slight delay. It is. The NatGI widget email doesn't work, so just use questions at wildearth.tv or hashtag Safari Live, and we can chat as we go along. Brian, shall we keep going so that you can get some warmth into your very large bones?
Let's run across the open clearing. Here we go. Here we go.
There we go. That's much warmer, isn't it, Brian? Good. Well done. Right, one of the things to notice about a clearing like this, of course, is the grass, because the grass is a major component of what the animals out here eat. And if we look around here, what you can see is a number of very good grazing grasses, but also the fact that the grasses have turned from their verdant green of the summer to a slightly more yellow version of autumn grasses. And this sort of stuff here, these inflorescences, while very beautiful, are not in fact very good for animals to eat. This structural material here is known as lignin and cellulose, and it's almost indigestible even for herbivores. And so you will find things like elephants eating them, because they don't obviously digest a huge amount proportionate to what they eat. But many grazing animals, you'll often find fields of the sort of standing grass like this with huge inflorescences. And many grazing animals will starve in that sort of situation, because the straw is virtually completely inedible to grazing animals. This is what they want. They want this kind of stuff here. These leaves that grow at the bottom of the grasses. That's where the nutrients of the grasses are held, in the leaves here. It's carbohydrate largely, and of course the limiting macronutrient in grazing and browsing animals is protein. So if you're selecting for a grazing grass, you want one with the most protein possible. Now there are two little animals living in here, and Brian, they're your favorite animal. See that? The sweat fly. Isn't that nice?
Can't get in there.
Now, what is so nice about this sweat fly, of course, is that he's so cold he can't move, which means he is unable to climb into Brian's nose, ears or mouth. This fills Brian with joy and a sense of warmth, even though the morning is so cold. And we don't often get to see members of the order Diptera in such fashion, because they're normally buzzing around at a great and astounding speed. But there we have one sweat fly, and there's another fly here, Brian, believe it or not. Two members of your favourite order of animals sitting on this, what I think is spirobolus grass. There we go. Every time you stop, it's absolutely incredible. Every time you stop, you will find some source of, or some piece of life where you didn't expect that there's something else here. Now Brian, of course, is now warming up because he's doing an exceptional number of fairly difficult squats while while sitting in the clearings. And here is a minute spider of some description that has created a little cocoon of silk, and I cannot see inside it. I'm going to turn it around slightly, Brian, like that. And I have no idea what spider that is. I don't even know if he or she is in there. This particular grazing grass, much more effective than the other ones that we were looking at. This is called Panica maximum, or Guinea grass, and if we look down towards the base of the grass, you can see it's got much thicker leaves. Now that'll be ideal for something like a buffalo to eat. A buffalo will be deeply excited to find that, were to come across this at meal times. Righty, on we go. Brian, are those legs feeling the deep burn?
They are indeed.
Good, it's good. You'll enjoy feeling the deep burn. Oh, just quickly before we go across to Jamie, Brian, here be the horns of a nyala. One horn of a nyala, and I'm just astounded. The other day we watched an incredible sword fight here from two nyalas, and they normally of course don't fight with each other, but when they do get going, these are like the foils of two dancing fences. It is an absolutely amazing thing to watch. I don't know what befell this nyala, but it definitely is no longer alive. You see that, Brian? Yeah. And at the back here you can see how the entire skull has been bitten off and chewed off and eaten, I suspect, by beastly hyenas, which are not beastly at all. They're wonderful. Okay, we're going to quickly show you a picture of the sun coming up and hand you over to the golden face of Jamie Andrea Patterson.
Sorry, I had to have a good giggle at Kirsty. Kirsty, the lovely lady in Final Control, who I'm going to throw under the bus by just letting you know that she just said to me, 3, 2, 1, you are off air. Obviously, the job getting to Kirsty slightly. Sorry, Kirst. I thought that was hilarious. Back to the birds in the middle of the road. This might be a new one for some of you. Not a francolin, but a sand grouse. Now that is something that I have not seen very many of. You've got to be so careful with them in this particular area because unlike the francolins that tend to be quite vehicle savvy, the sand grouse tend to stick around and not necessarily move. At first, actually, I thought it was a button quail, but it's been that long since I've seen sand grouse in the Sabi Sands. Aren't they beautiful? See that slow movement? They rely far more, even more so than the francolins and the spur fowl of this area. They rely far more on the cryptic camouflage colouring that they have. And just have a look. You can see the male that's on the left versus the female that's on the right, with his dark banding around the beak, much more prominent eye ring as well with the yellow. You could just see, as usual with most bird species in this area, you can just see the male taking on a slightly more, it's like just ever so slightly brighter coloration. There you go, you've got it perfect, because I'm still in something of disarray since I first arrived back from leave. My bird book is currently sitting in my personal car, having been utilised in Johannesburg. So I can't show you the pictures of the other sand grouse that you get in these areas, but this is the most common by far. It's having a jolly good preen. Shame. They're also feeling the cold of the morning, very, very puffed up. Now, Red, you were wondering about whether or not any of the birds will fly north for the winter, or is it not cold enough for them to do so? And the answer is yes, a lot of our species do, and actually in this case have migrated up to the northern areas. Some of them are Palearctic migrants, in other words, they go all the way up to Europe and those areas. The steppe buzzards or the steppe eagles, for example, or in fact the white storks that are famous for doing those journeys of hundreds of miles right across up to Croatia and even further north into Europe. So they will have left already. The European bee-eaters, Red, I'm not sure exactly where you're from, but if you are in a sort of the European area, you might be seeing the European bee-eaters already. I know a couple of the viewers have sent through pictures to me about the fact that the European bee-eaters have already covered that tremendous distance and started emerging in the countries around there. So they do fly, they are resource-based. A lot of the cuckoo species, the Deirdrich's cuckoo, will move a little bit further, and then some are intra-African. So the woodlands kingfisher, for example, we no longer are interrupted constantly by the chup-churr sound of the woodlands kingfisher. They've moved further towards Central Africa, following the rains and the insect population. But some of them, like our little sand grouse here, who are sitting tucked right in the middle of the road, they're not going anywhere. They will be here for the remainder of the year, just like all of the francolin species. Quite a few of, for example, the lilac-breasted roller. They will all be around. So, even though you are starting, this is a good place to start because we've got lots of different last bird species to really all the different signs of the bush, and Sam has found one for you.
So we have a little case study here which can help us determine what animal was here. And if you're just looking from a distance, you can quite clearly see the amount of dung that is out there, and then there's a track right next to that dung. So have a look at that track. It's from a hippo, so that is a hippo that has come here. If you just have a look maybe at the track right here, just closer to it, that one, there we go. And just go close to it, you'll see it has those 4 fingers that are coming out. So I'll just show you a track of a hippo in the book, and then show you that track again, just to help you identify it a little bit better. Here we go. So just coming out for a quick second, let's go to that track of a hippo. There it is at the bottom right. And 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers there that come out. And we'll see that. Let's go back to the track now. You can get around plus minus 24 centimeters. So that's just a little bit of size. Let's go have a look again. You can see that 1, 2, 3, 4 fingers there. Quite clearly, it's perfect light to actually be able to see that as the sun shines and shows you the shadow there. So, and then the dung is here. So what hippos do is they spray their dung out there like that, and that's also a way in which they mark territory. And is that a bug that is crawling through that little thicket there? Thicket of dung? Awesome. Look at that. So that will provide food for the many, many different little creatures that will be out here in the bush. Scavenging for any kind of food that it might be able to get this morning, or even warmth. Like this dung provides a lot of warmth. So you can just imagine how many animals would like to see that, especially those little insects. So when we have a look at some elephant dung a little bit later, you'd also find when you open it, you can just find a whole community of little bugs that are running around it. So that's really cool. That's a little bit of evidence to show that there is a hippo in the area. So maybe we're going to get into a position where we can have a look at the sunrise, because it's going to be magnificent. In the meantime, let's go and see how James is doing on his bushwalk.
A spider, everybody, an incredible view. Last of the really sweet smelling flowers of the summer, Jasminium fluminense. There are 3 or 4 different species of spider living on this little plant, and I'm not probably one of the crab spiders, but we're not going to dally here. There are monkeys alarm calling behind us, and so we're going to follow up and see what we can find there. They're basically alarm calling from where we've come, so we're going to go here and see if we can't find what they're shouting at. As we get closer, I'll try and give you some kind of indication as to what they sound like, but the microphone at the moment is not going to. So let's go. We're going to walk quite quickly and just see if we can't pick something up. Maybe there's a leopard. Maybe there's a leopard wandering across the clearings. Who knows? We might be lucky. They're calling just above the camp, just above the final control. Steph is walking off to where Brian is pointing the camera, so he's having a look there. We'll just sort of go in a slightly broader front along here. It would be very exciting to see some kind of marvelous predator here. I'm just going to look with my binos. Not my binos, Kirsten's binos. Okay, on we go. Didn't see anything there. So the monkeys will be sitting in the tops of the trees going... Sorry, what? What was that? Sorry, Kirsten, I can't hear that. The body pack. Okay, sorry, I'm getting very confused instructions here. Let me just move this a bit. You can hear an owl alarm call. I mean, the last time I found a leopard after monkeys were alarm calling at it, it was probably about, I'd say, almost a quarter of a mile from them. So they do, I mean, you know, they have very good eyesight, and they will watch something until it's at least a quarter of a mile away from mile, which is obviously huge from wherever those monkeys are. So, I mean, it could be the other side of the camp into the drainage line there. So what we'll do is do a sort of wheel around there and see if we can't find some tracks. If we don't find any tracks, we will no doubt find many other fascinating things. Well, you're in. You might alarm call at the smell of a predator. No, I don't believe that they would. I think they're entirely visual in their sort of seeking of safety, if you like. I think their noses are probably far more used for finding food, and when a predator is very close, they might sort of look. But that alarm call is saying, I see a predator. It means I see you, I know you there, and it's shouting at the others, telling them, look over there, look over there. So I don't think that there is any element of olfactory sort of alarm, if you know what I mean. I've no doubt they've got a slightly more sensitive nose than ours, but I don't think that they are smelling a predator and then alarming. Get onto the damn wall. Alright, let's quickly head across to Sam. He's got the sunrise, and we will attempt to find whatever was causing the consternation in those monkeys.
So there the sun is again. The last time we saw the sun was on Cheetah Plains last night, and now we are off back towards Cheetah Plains, and the beautiful sun has just risen over the eastern horizon. Take a minute to soak in this beautiful sun before we have an adventurous morning. With the sun comes a number of bird calls, so just pay attention to all the bird calls that are going off around us. And if we are lucky, we might just be able to see a planet just beneath the sun. James and I were chatting this morning that he told me that there might be Venus that will rise right beneath the sun this morning. Beautiful. Let's get into a position where we might be able to see this star that might be lurking beneath. We can have a look to see if there is a star or planet that was said to be seen underneath the sun this morning. Be an even more beautiful way to start our morning. That's quite bright. But have a look at even.
There's a tree in the way.
Oh, trees. Now I'm just going to reverse a little bit.
Should be alright.
So can we see Venus below the sun anywhere there? Just go down a little bit there, Dave. So there doesn't seem to be Venus. Oh well, the sun is up, and let's go off on an adventure. Thank you for coming and watching us have the sunrise on this fantastic morning. We're off to Cheetah Plains to see if we can relocate on that beautiful lion that we saw last night. Let's go and see how Jamie's doing.
Slight and ever so vague disappointment at the tracks that turned out to be hyena tracks on Central Road. Now Wiem, apart from being an excellent cameraman, is quite an astute observer of the behavior of the different animals, in particular the leopards of this area. And what Wiem's actually been telling me over the last few days is that Gijima, the male leopard, is up and down Buffel's Hook cut line, and that Tingana cruised through a couple of days ago and was sort of vigorously scent marking along Vuyatela main access. What I'm trying to do is I was trying to build up a picture of what happened last night, because I could hear and I could picture Tingana being slightly bigger than Gijima, sort of storming down the road, Buffel's Hook cut line, roaring his dominance to the world. And roaring, of course, I mean that harsh sawing sound that a leopard is capable of producing, both male and female. Something that puts them in the panthera category alongside the lions in this area. What we've discovered, and it just shows that Wiem's observations are absolutely correct, was that Tingana was pacing up and down Buffel's Hook cut line last night. I think it's Tingana. The tracks are a little bit too big to be Gijima. What we're doing now is checking really carefully around this block. And to give you some time to focus on looking for the tracks and check along the drainage lines of the area, let's head over to Bushwalk, who has a very tall creature.
And as the African sun starts to warm our faces, so it does that wonderful looking giraffe. Very elegant gold colours. That giraffe has the brunette of the giraffe world. We haven't come up with anything or any indication of what those monkeys were shouting at. So we're heading up sort of slowly towards quarantine clearings and just going to see if there aren't some tracks there, and then we'll sort of feed around to the northern side of our camp, around where the monkeys are known to roost, and we'll just see if anything doesn't pitch up there. Whatever it was could well have disappeared, so we'll just investigate the enjoyable things that we find on the way, and with any luck we'll find some tracks of whatever it was. Let's just go a little bit closer and see how this giraffe reacts to us. Now the sun has just come up, and as you can see it is casting a lovely golden dawn sheen on everything. And Brian, is you're starting to warm up now, are you?
Slightly.
Slightly. Still a bit cold. But the rays of the African morning sun are beginning to warm us. And that, of course, is one of the best feelings in the world. Right, let us observe this giraffe and watch him watching us. Her watching us, sorry. No, him watching us. I've just seen two females around here a lot recently. This is lovely. Yeah, he's a little bit nervous. Watch him. We were chatting the other day about flight distances and the distances at which an impala will run away. We figured it was probably at about 150 to 200 meters that an impala would run. That is roughly the distance. We're about 100 meters from this giraffe now. So his flight distance, given his size and therefore relatively strong ability to defend himself, is obviously slightly shorter than that of an impala. Let's go a little bit closer. Brian, the stick is ridiculous, isn't it? We'll find another one. There we go. So we've now closed the distance to probably about, I'd say 60 meters or so. That's about 200 feet. And he's decided, no, what do these guys want? So he's hidden himself. We'll get another view. Now what we don't want to do, if we want to sort of bring him into our confidence, if you like, is not behave like a predator. And a predator in a situation like this will try and hide behind a bush. It will disappear, and so the next time the giraffe pokes its head out to have a look and see what's going on, the predator will be gone. Now what we don't want to do is that. We want to show the giraffe that we are no threat, and so we're just going to walk completely in the open. There we go, he's stopped. There he is. Of course, Brian is almost the same size as that giraffe, which makes it slightly more intimidating for him. Isn't that cool? Now, Sandy, you ask a very valid. We wouldn't name a giraffe like we do the lions and the leopards. Well, Sandy, there's no real reason not to do it. The only reason is, I suppose, that the giraffe we see much less regularly, and their home ranges are much wider than some of the leopard territories. So the difference between a territory and a home range is that one is actively defended, that's the territory, and a home range is not. It's just an area in which an animal moves. And a leopard and a lion, they've got pretty predictable territory. So if we see a female leopard, let's carry on walking up here. If we see a female leopard in an area, we can be pretty sure that we know who it is and we know where she lives, and so we can almost follow her life much more accurately than we can with something like this giraffe. Much more widely, and sometimes they're here, and you know that, I don't know if you're I think you're a regular watcher, you'll know that some days we don't see giraffe. I mean, we can sometimes not see them for weeks. They're right on cue, Brian, you see that? You see, he's relieving himself. That seems to be the way it goes for me.
The usual story.
The usual story. So Sandy, I mean, there would be absolutely nothing wrong with naming him, but we don't see him regularly. I don't recognize this fellow necessarily. Do you, Brian?
No.
But I think it's also, Sandy, got to do with our absolute fascination with the big cats, which, while many people are very interested in giraffe, and I'm certainly one of them, they don't tend to hold the same fascination for us that the big cats do, the big iconic predators of Africa. I think we're going to leave him there, and let's head back up onto quarantine clearings now and see if we can't find some tracks. Look, Diva, you say that looks like a very intense giraffe. I'm not sure in what way he's an intense giraffe. He's a serious giraffe, maybe, sort of considerate of the world. There he is. Brian, do you think he's intense?
I don't know. Intense how?
He is certainly looking at us with intenseness. intensity.
His intent is to eat some leaves.
Yes, I think it is. But he's definitely communicating with us. Now, although he's probably not doing it vocally, his communication is through watching us and deciding whether or not we're a threat. And I also think, I've said before, that with elephants I think they get bored, and it wouldn't surprise me if a number of the animals here, you know, they have a fairly a mundane lifestyle, if you like, where they do the same things every day, wander about, having a bit to eat here, bit to eat there, bit to drink there. I think it's quite entertaining for them to see us. And Dina, you say, have we ever looked at giraffe dung? Well, we have. We can try and find that fresh deposit if you would like to, Dina. Brian, shall we find this fresh deposit? Oh, well, there is a deposit of something else. I don't know if it was this giraffe. It was quite possible. No, I don't see his. No, do I? Do you see his tracks anywhere? You do. Steph does see his tracks here. So this is where the giraffe has relieved himself, and quite a aromatic deposit, wouldn't you say? Well, yeah,
Definitely.
yes. And then, oh wow, look at this. This is unbelievable. This has come off the giraffe. I bet you can't even guess what this is, everyone.
That's awesome.
Anybody know what that is? Count his legs.
Turn it a little bit more to face me. There we go.
How many legs do you think that this creature has? See if you can count them. I'll turn him over again. It's come off the giraffe, there's no question. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ergo, it is an arachnid, and it is so engorged, it is a tick. It is a large tick engorged with the blood of that giraffe. It's so engorged it can't even move. Ugh.
It's horrifying.
It is horrifying, isn't it? Okay. Right, sorry, it is moving there, yes. It managed to move its one fat leg. Let's quickly head across to Cheetah Plains for something far more attractive than this deeply engorged and diseased tick.
We are on Cheetah Plains and we've just caught visual of a hyena. Which is starting to sink off into the distance there. At least you managed to get a quick visual of that hyena. Let's see if we can see him again. Just gone into that thicket. That was awesome to just quickly spot him. As we entered Cheetah Plains, there was a hyena. Can you see him there, Dave?
No.
No, it's just gone into that thicket. I'm not sure where the dens are on this property, so I wouldn't know which way that hyena's got to. But how exciting. As soon as we arrive on the property there is a hyena walking around. So we've just seen that. What we're going to do is we're going to at least try and follow the path left and see if we can find that hyena again. But once again, this is all Cheetah Plains over here, and we actually can't go further. And there's one road north that we can take. Otherwise, it's another person's property here on Cheetah Plains. But that means that there's been some activity over the night now that we've seen a hyena. And they are nocturnal animals, hyenas. So I heard them all night last night at Fuyatela, making quite a racket. And we're making a very, very big sound. So let's just see if there's any activity going on because of that hyena. That they can often bring about all sorts of stories that might be going on around. Yeah, Gen B. I noticed that when we were looking at him first before you came through, it didn't look like he had a tail. Did you see? No, it didn't look like he had a tail. Good, well spotted there, Judy. Forgot to mention that. That was interesting. Have you seen that that hyena before? Does anyone recognize the hyena without a tail? Because it was quite a significant loss of the tail there. Just going to see if there's anything going through here now. We've got tracks of hyenas on the road. So our visit already here has been quite interesting. So just to give you a feeling of what Cheetah Plains is like, what it's like when we come to Cheetah Plains, it's very, very thick as it starts. Look at that beautiful camera work from Dave with the sun and the nice light on these trees. And so it's really nice as you come into Cheetah Plains. It's very thick brush, so the chances of seeing some of the animals like the kudu and the impala, and that's for about 1 kilometer, and then you come out onto the plain. So that's what we call an ecotone, where you have two different ecosystems influencing each other, and it's rich in biodiversity. That's what I really, really enjoy about Cheetah Plains, is that collaboration between two different types of ecosystems. The thick bush and the open areas where we saw the lion walk through yesterday. And on ecotones there's also an opportunity to see a lot more birds than you normally would. I mean, yesterday we saw the Swainson's spurfowl. I hope you all wrote that in your bird list. I have done so. I just want to show everyone what the bird list is looking like at the moment, just to give you a heads up on how we're doing. So this is where we are. There's the bird list. So yesterday we saw a crested barbet, a tawny eagle. The other day we saw a lappet-faced vulture, white-backed vulture, and a Swainson Franklin. So who knows what we might, well, it's not a Swainson Franklin, it's actually a Swainson spurfowl, so I should change that. So we're on 40 on my list with you. Let's see if we can be able to find something else this morning. James is with a squirrel. Let's go and have a look at that squirrel. The positive squirrel.
Linking. There's some amazing stuff going on here, everybody. But there's a little squirrel just sitting on his morning balcony, having his morning coffee, facing the eastern sun. This is prime squirrel real estate there. It's in the trunk of a marula tree. There's a perfectly hollowed hole for him, and he's sitting enjoying the first rays of this Thursday, or Friday morning actually, weekend coming up. Nice to have a restful Friday morning like that, don't you think, Brian? Very pleasant. I think he could not be happier if he tried. Looks like the perfect little place to live. Highly salubrious squirrel neighborhood. Beverly Hills, sort of. Here he comes. And then just as you were coming over to us, there was a purple roller flying around here. It's stopped doing it now, but it was making a huge noise and doing its rolling thing very close to the ground. I'll show you what I mean once we've had enough of this little squirrel. So he'll go foraging now, and he'll go and find, basically he's a rodent, so he'll eat anything that a rodent will eat. Nuts, amazingly, marula trees are producers of nuts, and so he will eat nuts if he can find a female marula tree. And they'll store them, and they'll eat them straight away, and then they'll collect grass seeds, and they'll probably eat the odd insect if they can, and they'll just forage about basically for anything that they can. Just like any rodent, they'll be fairly omnivorous about what they eat. Now, this purple roller, which is an unusual roller here, it's not uncommon, but it's unusual. I don't know if you know why rollers get their name, but they get their names from the acrobatic displays that they make. And normally the lilac-breasted roller flies up way into the sky and then sort of dives and flaps his wings like that. This purple roller shot across the clearing here at about probably 3 feet from the ground, and he was doing this unbelievable acrobatic display as you came live, and then he disappeared. Just an amazing, amazing thing to see, and the way a bird is able to fly so close to the ground without harming itself is astonishing. Then we're also in the presence of a migrating wildebeest. Well, he's not migrating, he just came wandering onto the clearings. He seems to have disappeared now though. Let's move up onto the clearings here. Still no sign of what those monkeys were shouting at. So quite possibly whatever it is has moved away. Well, it has definitely moved away, but where it's moved we don't know. The wildebeest came running on basically from, there he is. He's migrating again, Brian, you see that?
I do.
That's at high speed. Now I'm being completely facetious, he's not migrating, but he does look fairly nervous. So something's got up his nose. I think there's an element of basically him exercising that is important for some of the animals here, in the same way that the cats have to stretch when they stand up, and the dogs too, because they need to keep their muscles fit and supple, and their joints supple, and all the fluids and juices going. So maybe that's all he's doing. Maybe he's just trying to warm up like Brian was earlier this morning. But maybe there's something here. He came on from the sort of right-hand side of your screen now, and then he turned around here and went away. Now, we were waiting for this, of course, but we have a wonderful new Twitter handle, and that is the Twitter handle Positive Squirrel. And for those of you who don't know, that comes from our dear friend Sam and his first day out here, where he told a dastardly story about the death of a squirrel and felt bad that on his first day he was giving negative vibes to the internet. He is from Cape Town after all. And he then said, but he was of course a positive squirrel, speaking of his squirrel Monty. So Positive Squirrel, wonderful Twitter handle, good on you. I've forgotten entirely what you asked. I'll get it back though. I was just so amazed. Oh yes, are squirrels solitary or do they live in groups? Positive Squirrel, squirrels will live in groups, normally of a couple, a male and a female, and some youngsters, and then the youngsters will go off on their own. So it's basically in couples, like little almost nuclear families, I suppose. That one looked quite young to me, so maybe the parents have gone off foraging already. We'll just scan the clearings here. And Tana, you're wondering about the stashes of nuts that squirrels have. Now, I've read the same thing, possibly in storybooks as a youngster, that squirrels will keep stashes of nuts all over the place, and that they will remember where all of them are. Now, I don't know if that applies to the African tree squirrel. It could apply to the African tree squirrel, but I'm not sure. I imagine it does though, because they do have to keep these supplies of nuts. I mean, they've got to get through the winter, of course, as we know. That's why they stash them. And although it doesn't get very cold here, and there will be more things to eat here than there will in Europe for a squirrel to eat during the winter, there are very few nuts. Let's have a look up the top here. Ryan, did you see how elegant that was?
Amazing.
Yes. Did I look like a very elegant baboon?
A very elegant tree squirrel.
Yes. I'm now scanning the horizon for predators, as would a baboon. But I don't see anything. Nor do I see that wildebeest. So what I think we'll do, everybody, is probably head off down there, and then we'll ease our way around to the Gallagher Pan, where the monkeys may have been alarm calling. They just sounded a bit closer than that. But we have got some impala now, Brian. You'll see them coming into frame now. They're running towards us. The male chasing the female. And as I said, we're going into the last, or the end of the rut. Now, I'm just listening. We've got those impala running around. They're going into the sort of final stages of the rut. We're heading into the dark phase of the moon in May, when the mating will occur. And Joey, aka Monkey Man in Australia, you wonder how an impala like these will react to a caracal or an African wildcat, them being smaller cats. Well, a caracal is substantially larger than an African wildcat and poses a much greater threat to something like an impala. You can see them running around there. And so I think an impala ewe certainly, and a young impala would be a definite risk from a caracal. I've seen impala killed by caracal before. But an African wildcat would pose no threat to anything but the very smallest, most crippled impala lamb. So I think that they would probably be fairly nervous of a caracal. A caracal probably weighs in the region of 15 to 20 kilograms, which is about 60 pounds. No, it's not, it's about 40 pounds. Whereas an African wildcat probably weighs less than half of that. So substantially larger. I guess it's not impossible for an African wildcat to kill a very small impala, but it's highly unlikely. These impala are chasing each other around as the rut comes to the end. Okay, let me get out of this tree. I will attempt to do this in an elegant fashion too. And while I do that, let's go across to Jemmy, get an update at what she's doing.
Expanded our search to a little bit farther afield. It looks as though those leopard tracks have actually gone north into Buffelshoek, but it's a regular boundary line, that southern part of Buffelshoek, just on the northern side of our traverse area. They seem to enjoy walking up and down and marking their territory there. I'm checking all along the crests and the ridges because there's a distinct possibility that one of the two males that we've been tracking has decided to come back onto Djuma. I've been checking the crests and termite mounds because on this chilly morning, in my anthropomorphic mind, if I were a cat, I would want to find myself a nice sunny patch on a termite mound and settle down there. And that is where I would want to spend my morning, warming up in the rays of the sun. Certainly what the dwarf mongoose are going to do when they decide to start emerging. It makes sense in my head that that is what the cats wish to do. An update on the cats, since we are around Buffelshoek Dam, we're close to the area where the Nkuhumas were seen yesterday, along with the Birmingham boy. It sounds as though the Birmingham boys have gone northeast and taken the females with them into Buffelshoek property. So that's where they are. And that makes sense. That ties in with what Wim was saying, where he said that he heard the lions roaring very far away last night. So they've already moved off, headed into a different direction. And from what I heard, it sounded as though the female that was mating with the male yesterday wasn't... I did actually just see that. Leopard. Hey! Are we getting closer? Let's try that again. Oh, well spotted, Wim. And he's fresh. See, this is why our cameramen are not just good at filming. They're also very useful sitting in the back at the top. Now, those tracks have been driven over. Not by me, but they have been driven over. Let's just sit and listen for 1 second because they do look particularly fresh. There you can see them wandering along the road. You can see where the tire track went over. The first one was mine, but then further up the road, that's not my tracks, but I can still see them in the road. Just bear with me 1 second. I want to hop out. Oh, wait. There's a good idea. let's see if I can find where Vian's caliper's gone. They're in this box somewhere. There we go. Here we go. For those of you wondering about the track measurement project, I've got Vian's calipers. We have been sort of documenting the different sizes of the different tracks. So let's jump out and see if we can work out if this is Gijima or Tingana or even Mvula. We haven't seen Mvula in quite an extended period of time. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that my microphone doesn't go falling out of my pocket when I jump out. All right, let me disentangle myself from the various cables and let's hop out.
We're going to lose your audio.
You're going to lose my audio?
Yeah.
Okay.
See how far you get up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Via. Ooh. Let's see if we can't figure this out quickly. Just stopping to listen for alarm calls. There's always a chance that this leopard is still somewhere here. Not as fresh as I first thought. Probably sometime last night. Let's just have a look. So, let's try and remember this. Vim, we'll have to try and keep track as well. Front right. 10.2. Front right. Back right. 11.4. Front left. Interesting. Front left is 11. And back left is 10.5. Now, of course, we've got to factor in the different substrates. Can you hear me there? Awesome, thank you. You've got to factor in the different substrates. This is interesting soil because it's quite coarse. One of the nicest ways to try and figure out exactly how fresh a track is to step next to it. Can you see these tracks from where you are, Viam? If I put my track here, you can see how defined the lines are of this track versus these leopard tracks, which makes me think that it is from last night. But he could well still be in this vicinity. Now, I'm not sure, I cannot remember off the top of my head exactly how big Tingana's tracks were. And they were measured in very, very soft soil, but very fine soil. The coarse, soft soil like this will actually make the track a little bit bigger. The toes will spread out, the foot will spread out a bit more in this kind of substrate. Because it's softer, it gives a little bit more than the finer soils. Let me relocate my earpiece and let's continue on the search for this leopard. I think it's pure supposition, but I think there was a degree of confrontation. Not necessarily confrontation in the physical sense, but I think that Tingana is aware of the presence of Gijima, and he's hot on his tail, making sure that Gijima knows who's boss in this area. I'm going to continue following these tracks. They are beautiful, and they're on top of the vehicle tracks. And there might even be two sets here, so I'm going to concentrate on that. Let's have a look at bushwalk and a butterfly.
Look at this very special butterfly, everybody, and I'm sure you can tell which is front, but if you look at the back of it, it's also got almost a head. It's got these feelers or antennae that come out of the back end of it, and it's like the sort of push-me-pull-you, if you like, of butterflies. The push-me-pull-you, of course, a character, I think it was a Dr. Dolittle story, that had a head on both ends of it, and this butterfly, for its own defense, has got a back end that looks like it's got a head on it, and I'm sure that makes potential predators think, well, this fellow must be watching us from both sides. Absolutely astonishing. So the two small antennae coming out of his rear end there, I suspect are completely vestigial. I'm not sure that they have any actual function other than disguise. Isn't that amazing? I don't know what butterfly it is. And he's unable to move because it's cool, and so he's just lying here in the sun, waiting for the hemolymph to heat up his... sorry, I'm getting confused here. Waiting for the hemolymph, which is the blood, in his little veins to heat up so that the hydraulic pressure in his wings can build and he can then fly off. The other thing you can see, Brian, I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but he's got obviously clubbed antenna on the front. Now, one of the ways you can tell whether this is a moth or a butterfly is the fact that the antennae are clubbed, so they've got a sort of large bulbous end to them. He's got lovely black eyes, and he's even got, I mean, his antennae are black and white striped, and then the clubs are sort of black and orange with a little bit of white on them. I mean, he's an amazing, amazing detail on this fellow.
Try to get his face.
Were he to open up a bit, let me move the other way. Were he to open up his wings, we could get an incredible view of what, or we'd have a better idea of what he was. But without his wings opening up, it's almost impossible to tell what butterfly he is. Can I get out of the way?
No, I've lost sight of him.
Okay. If we do disturb him, I suppose he might open his wings, but he might also fly off before he's ready. And I'm just looking at the back end, you're looking at his eyes there, and I'm looking at the rear antenna. They've also got a little white club on the end of them. So he's tiny, he's probably about half an inch long. I just heard a noise. No idea what it was. Beautiful, hey? Then just quickly, everyone, before we go off to see Galago Pan, we haven't got very far. Every time we think about going any distance, we find something else. Here is a marula nut. We were talking about the squirrel and what they like to eat, and this is a marula nut. The nut is out of this pip, if you like, or shell, and you'll find that it has been eaten by a squirrel. The flesh of the nut is in those little holes there that look like little alien eyes, and very, very difficult to extract if you don't have the sort of rodent-like teeth of a squirrel. But human beings do it, but you have to crush these things, and they are so hard. They are much harder than any pecan nut you've ever opened up before, and the only way to do it is to sit with two very kind of well-used stones, one very flat and one with a nice crushing edge on it, and you develop a technique. And there are people all over these communities out here, of course, where there's a 70% unemployment rate, sitting all day long. They've collected hundreds of these nuts, and they just sit and crush them and extract the nuts, and then they sell the nuts or eat them. Very nutritious. They've got a lot of selenium in them, as far as I know, and selenium is a really good nutrient for immune function. That is the marula nut. Right, Brian? Let's head across to Sam, get an update from him on the cheetah plains. We're going to now walk with some speed towards Galago Pan and see if we can't pick up what those monkeys were shouting at earlier on.
Welcome back to Cheetah Plains. You're with Dave and Sam, and we are looking for Inkanyeni. We are now on the very, very eastern boundary that we can go and traverse on to see if we might be able to spot Inkanyeni where we last saw her. Just see if we could find any tracks. I mean, I've been here a few times since we came here just to check that she's not denning in here with her cubs. So it seems fairly empty, but it's always worth coming and having a look here before we go out into the big open areas of Cheetah Plains. Who knows what we can see there this morning? We still haven't gone there. We took a different route this morning where we just followed the thick bush to see if we might be able to pick up on some tracks of a leopard. And so now we're going to move more out of the leopard territory kind of area and move into more of a cheetah, ostrich, jackal kind of terrain. So we're just going to have our last look to see if we can find James Richard would like to see Quarantine. Is it Quarantine the leopard you'd like to see, James? hopefully we'll see if we can find quarantine. And you would like to see an ostrich. James, I'm yet to see an ostrich. I'm yet to see one, so I'm with you on that. I would like to see one. Dave, have you seen an ostrich?
No.
Dave also hasn't seen an ostrich. James hasn't seen an ostrich. I'm sure many of the viewers haven't seen an ostrich. I would love to see one, so let's look for a long head coming out of the bush somewhere. A long neck, sorry, not a long head. It would be quite strange. Just saw one long head. But why we're also looking on the termite mounds is because it's a very cold morning and it's probably around 16 degrees and 60 Fahrenheit around there now. And you know, the leopards like to be on top of the termite mounds when it's cold like this, because as you've probably seen, either Jamie hugging a termite mound or James putting his hands into them to keep them warm. It's like a good little heater, so it keeps them warm. Their belly's nice and warm. So you just have a look on some of the termite mounds. You might be able. Oh, what bird is that? That's on top of it. If you have a look at this termite mound, there's a bird, two birds in there. Let's have a look. What does that look like? It's very difficult to spot from here. Could be a flycatcher. What bird is that? Let's get my binoculars out. So I'm seeing it. Look, it could also be a prinia. So what can we see on this bird now? You can see quite a short beak, a longish tail. I can't quite confirm on the colours. It's got a bit of a crest on its head, but with the sun behind it, it makes it very difficult to determine and distinguish some of those colours. If I look on the camera, I can see brown. Let's have a look in the bird book at flycatchers. If anyone has an idea what bird this might be, please hashtag Safari Live. It's a there's two of them there. What else can we notice about that? Quite a whitish stomach, long-tailed the back. So I think it's a flycatcher. I'm just going to go to A, B, C. So let's just very quickly do this to see what bird we might be able to put onto our list this morning. Okay, so they've gone now, so just let's quickly have a look here. I thought for a second that it could have been this bird. One at the bottom left. The African dusky flycatcher. So it did have that fairly short tail over there with that nice short beak and that crest on top, those, and that white stomach. We did say all of those, hey? So I reckon it's the African dusky flycatcher. And I'll have a look in some of the readings to see if it comes with, well, it often flies with a mate. In the meantime, let's go and see how Jamie's doing with an elephant.
Lovely to just spend a bit of time with this elephant herd around Guari Pan. And I think it's the same one that performed so beautifully for us before in this area. Very, very sweet little one who's going to come and... Oh, running behind Mom. Okay, little ones. Oh, panic. Panic, Mom's gone. Racing after her. So entertaining. You can't see it, but the little one came behind us and oh, shame. What's the matter? What's got you so on edge? Okay, running around. 2 little male calves. Oh, and we've got the rest of them on their way to come and join us. Hello, guys. Where are you running to? What's got you in such a hurry? Hmm? Oops. Hello. It's all right, big girl. Sorry, just keeping an eye. Always important to have eyes in the back of your head where an elephant herd is concerned. And these guys, not unsettled with us, but something's obviously upset them further to the east. I don't know if it's the smell of lions maybe in the area. This is exactly very close to where those lions were yesterday. And I suspect that that's what's got them a little bit on edge. And the older females relaxed and feeding, but the calves, you can see unsettled body language, head swinging backwards and forwards. And I'm just going to, in the morning dust, there is a chance I might sneeze. I'll try and cover my microphone so I don't deafen you. Oh, yes. Push, push, little one. Oh, big and strong, but defeated by that little piece of acacia there. Young elephants are always incredibly sweet to watch. Watching them learn to use their trunks and learning the coordination and the limits of their strength. Natasha in Ontario, you were wondering if an elephant will get, as it ages, more wrinkly. And I have to be honest, I haven't noticed an increase in wrinkliness exactly, but their skin does lose a subcutaneous fat layer. So that fat layer gets less and less as time goes on. And what that means is that their bones, particularly the ridge of the spine along the top of the back, and then around the temples, that's actually what becomes more prominent as an elephant ages. And that is partly because they continue to grow throughout their life, and also partly because they've lost that subcutaneous fat layer. It happens to human beings as well. And yes, to a certain degree, the skin loses some elasticity. But I have to be honest, Natasha, I've noticed far more an individual variation between how wrinkly an elephant's skin is. I've seen some youngsters with smooth skin. And then, of course, there was the famous wrinkly bottom, the young baby that had a tendency to stand on its hind legs when greeting vehicles and putting on a wonderful show and display for whomsoever got a chance to see them. And he was a particularly wrinkly baby. So I've noticed it just more in terms of individuals, just in the same way that their tusk size varies between individuals. Now that they've relaxed a little bit, I'm going to try and reposition ever so slightly. Oh, little one. Hello? Yes. Yes, you're very scary. Looking down their nose. And that head upright posture is a very common sight when you watch babies come. They're trying to, I think we actually, to be honest, I think we provide a form of entertainment for the elephants concerned, particularly the youngsters who are still feeding off their mother's milk, so they don't need to feed as often as the adults do. And as a result, they need something to entertain themselves. I'm quite sure what caused that sudden reverse into the road. I think there's another bigger male somewhere in there. And now what are you doing? Dragging his heels and walking backwards, reversing. There's something, I've had a couple of sightings now around this road where the male calves in particular have provided us with extraordinary forms of entertainment. Now this little one with his first set of teeth is limited slightly. Oh yes, give that branch a good dust. Dust off all that dirt. There we go. Now, he's limited in terms of what he can crunch and swallow and digest. But Lael, the other day we were watching an elephant munch away on a buffalo thorn, and you were just wondering what the largest, sort of in diameter, the largest stick, I suppose would be the best description, would be that an elephant can chew and digest. And obviously it depends on the size of the elephant. It also depends on the age of the elephant, because the older an elephant gets, and we've spoken a lot about this before, elephants go through 6 sets of molars in their lives. And that eventually is what leads to the end of an elephant, that eventually kills it, is they get to the point of their final set of molars. And as you know, elephants eat almost constantly. And once that final set is ground down, she's got a slightly floppy ear, then they can no longer chew and therefore digest as well as they could previously. So an old elephant will be limited as to what it eats, which is why they move to the softer riverbeds to eat foods like reeds and grasses that are just a little bit easier to and more palatable for them. But in terms of a healthy adult elephant, let's try and reposition as I answer. The largest branch that I've ever seen an elephant actively chew and eat was probably in the region of about that large. So maybe the diameter of a ping pong ball for a female. That being said, I did have a really strange sighting once with an elephant bull that usually when you watch an elephant with a branch that is larger than that, let's try and get up here, just turn around. When you watch an elephant bull with a branch larger than that, what they'll do is they will stick it in their mouths and then it will come out the other side, and what they're doing is just stripping away the bark. But in this particular sighting, the elephant was doing that. He was stripping the bark from a marula tree, but rejecting the bark, dropping the bark, and actually eating the heartwood. And that was a thick branch. That was about the size that he crunched his way through. So they are capable of eating larger meals or digesting larger branches. It's just quite unusual for them to actually bother when they could focus instead on the leaves and the bark. Where did this female go? There she is. She was a little bit unhappy with us in the beginning, so we'll let her have plenty of personal space. It's all right, girl. There, you see that backward tilt of the head or sideways tilt of the head? Just making sure that we're not following and that we're not a threat in any way. Oh, baby getting pushed by mom ahead, giving off a little trumpeting sound. So, Sebosiso, the black mamba from Hammanskraal, has been looking very carefully at the elephant's anatomy and was just thinking about how elephants are so much larger in comparison to the big cats, and yet their tails are so much shorter, and was just suggesting that the elephant's tails seem ridiculously out of proportion. Yes, absolutely. I can see exactly what you mean. A giraffe's tail is longer. A buffalo's tail even looks a bit longer in comparison to its body size. Of course, for elephants and for lions and for leopards, and cheetah, those tails serve a very important purpose. Whether it's acting as a rudder when they're running and they're chasing something and changing direction, that tail can stiffen and act as a counterbalance in a way. So they need that extra length, they need that extra weight. And you'll see in cheetah, their tails are almost the length of their body, if not longer, and quite heavily weighted, and able to direct and balance the cheetah at high speeds as they run and they change direction. And the same goes for leopards. If you watch the way that a leopard will utilize its tail as it climbs up into trees, it's basically a counterbalance. Monkeys have the same thing, long, long tails, and in fact even more dexterous than the leopards and the lions, able to basically serve as a fifth limb to help them out. Elephants don't really need that counterbalance, and in fact, to counterbalance an elephant weight, a tail would actually have to be absolutely enormous. So for the elephants, the tail just serves a purpose basically to express, first of all, to act as a fly swatter and an irritation, because the trunk can't reach all the way behind them. So if there's something irritating an elephant there, then they will not be able to reach it. They'll have to swat it with their tail. But most importantly, it serves as a mood indicator to the rest of the herd. Now, as we go into the drought that we are facing, and as we go into our natural dry season, we've spoken before about the fact that we're being very careful about the impact that we have on the bush. And since we do have so many extraordinary elephant sightings, I'm not going to be off-roading after this particular herd. First of all, it's relatively purposeless, because they just, as we go through, they're just going to keep moving further and further ahead of us. And yes? Sure. Okay. Must I aim? Okie dokie. It could well be. This is where they were yesterday. Let me try direct us so that we can get it on camera. Where am I looking? Oh yes, I see exactly where you mean. Yes, it's the path that the lionesses took up towards Buffelshoek Dam. I said to you guys that I think that it was the smell of lions that was actually upsetting them. Now, I have already checked Buffelshoek Dam. I think that these tracks are from yesterday, when they walked through and a little bit towards Buffelshoek. So I think these are from last night, but well spotted for Wiem. And I'm sure that is what has caused the upset amongst the elephants. I think that's why they're so unsettled and upset. A very good spot by Wiem, and in fact, as we drive through, I can actually smell the lions. One of them has defecated somewhere here. I'm working off a hunch. I'm hoping our leopard tracks are going to pop out somewhere here and that the elephants haven't walked all over them. While we continue that search, let's find out how James's wander through the bushes is going.
We're now in some very thick bush, and we've come to the northern Gallagher camp and Gallagher waterhole. We heard two buffaloes wrestling, I think, at the camp, just sort of knocking horns a bit, but through here we can hear the sound. We think perhaps coming this way. We haven't come across their tracks, so may well be coming this way to have a drink. We're moving very carefully and very slowly through here at the moment, and we'll just keep checking the wind. This is there, I can hear them. This is a sack full of ash. So the wind's actually a bit at the moment, which is not too bad if you're tracking. If we were just standing here, you can't really feel. You certainly can't feel any of the wind. So we're going to continue down through this very gorgeous drainage line. If you look around us, it really is some spectacular bushveld here. We're going to continue through here, and while we do that, let's head across to Sam, who's got an antelope roughly the same size as I am.
Here we are with two steenbok. This is the one here. You can see it's a female. There's another one just to the left over there, which is a male, and we can tell it's a male because of the little horns that are coming out of his head. See if we can see those horns. That's the female, so you can see there's no horns coming out of her head. And there we go, there's the male. So they are monogamous. You'll often find them in pairs. Aren't they such beautiful antelope? We really don't get opportunities to watch them for a long time, and I don't think they've noticed us because they've they are just, wow, it's cool to see them both in the same frame. Ooh. So they are otherwise known as the stone buck. Steenbok means stone buck. So steenbok is the Afrikaans name, and steenbok is meaning animal that can sit and be still like a stone. Often you'll just see them sitting down in a position where they much look like a stone, and this is almost a adaptation to getting away from predators, or just being very, very still, hoping that nothing sees them. Have a look at those ears moving in all different directions. I've just heard the sound of a squirrel alarm call into the thicket behind it, which can indicate a predator. So these antelope will pick up on all the different sounds that are going on around here. They'll pick up on monkey alarm calls, squirrel alarm calls, and they'll get those ears out, those antennas out, to pick up any signal of these. There they are, they're still very close to the vehicle. It was awesome to spend such a lot of time with them. Now they've spotted us, watch them run, that agility. There now, there they go, wow. Sprinting off. Great camera work there. That was amazing. Spent quite a lot of time with two steenbok, who are monogamous. So we are still on the open areas of Cheetah Plains. Just to let everyone know, you must write down African dusky flycatcher, because that's what it was in your bird list. African dusky flycatcher. That's number 41 for us. I was very, very excited to see that bird, because you can only really get the rare, like the ones that are difficult to find, when you're live. I've been with that bird at least twice. When I realized it was an African dusky flycatcher, and you go live, and as soon as you go live, it flies away. Literally 2 seconds before you go live, it flies away. So you can only really get those rare ones or the most difficult ones when you are live. So that's really exciting. I'm very happy that we managed to get that beautiful bird. We've got a blacksmith plover just on the damn wall here. Let's see what might be lurking in raw water this morning. Potentially some terrapins. Maybe, we haven't seen the buffalo, but he could be in there. We've seen loads of tracks of hippos. Let's have a look what might be here. It's looking rather still this morning. Just going to see if we can find some tracks of male lion, because this is where we left the male lion last night, just in the thicket behind us. So we might be able to pick up the tracks of this male lion around here and begin to see if we can relocate or see what direction he's moved in, to give us a better idea of where we should go this morning. Let's have a look. There's our blacksmith plover again. Just hold it. Nice long black legs. Beautiful bird to see. And actually, if you can pick up in the distance, there's another bird that's just walking around there. I'm not sure what it is from the... What is that? That looks like a crown blackbird. There we go. So we've seen two of the same similar birds that are ground nesting. So they are precocial. So they're born able to walk and move around and with their eyes open. Some birds are born atricial, which means that their eyes are closed and they have no feathers and they still have to grow their feathers. So often you'll find their nests on the ground with their eggs. And you can quite clearly see that that is a crowned lapwing with the whites around the top there, the king. See, it's feeding. It looks like every now and then it dips down and gets something. I wonder what he's collecting there. Could be little seeds on the ground. That are 2 lapwings, and that's the sound of that one. So we know that the blacksmith, boss bird on our left here, ringneck dove. Hello. So we've seen 3 little birdsies down by the watering hole. We've seen 4 rather. African dusky flycatcher. So we're going to now go back to those open. We're going to go back to the open areas, and we're going to go and see what we can find. Let's go to Jamie with the warthog.
I've just suddenly stopped. I've gone very quiet. I'm trying to work out exactly what these impala are looking at. And I just thought I heard an alarm call in the drainage line. That being said, at the moment, the impala are actually looking at the world's biggest warthog. I'm going to try and see if I can get a view of him for you. He's very skittish. He shot across the road in front of me, giving the impression of a baby hippo. He's so large, with enormous tusks curling over the front of his nose. It could only be a male. He is so big. Where has he gone? Come on, warthog. Don't disappear on me. Nope. Unfortunately, he didn't want to stick around, and I can't see exactly where he's gone. That warthog was probably in the reed. You got him. Oh, there he is. I know it's very difficult for you. How's your view there, Vim? It might be as good as it gets. It's very, very difficult for you to get a perspective of scale through the camera. That warthog, as he snuffles along, probably weighs twice what I weigh. He is absolutely enormous. And if we sit quietly, he might... Oh, he's going to move into the open. Come on, boy. Come on, just a little bit further. Show us your enormous tusks. He's actually scared of the impala. There he goes. Now, it's difficult for you to get a sense of scale, but he's probably about the size, in terms of height, of about a pit bull, as a breed of dog, just as an example, but he's in the region of 100 kilograms easily, maybe 80 to 100 kilograms, 160 odd to 220 odd pounds. It is a big warthog, a very large warthog. And a warthog like that would cause even the most stoic of large male leopards to doubt himself in terms of tackling him. Tingana took down a warthog of a similar size not too long ago around Sandy Patch, so he's quite the expert warthog killer. But it comes at a very serious risk of injury. There he disappearing off. You can see he's very skittish. He's not at all comfortable with us. But a warthog like that with sharp tushes, the bottom tusks, it's not the top tusks that one has to worry about, it's the bottom ones. Those are razor sharp and could do some serious injury. Well, depositing the remnants of his digestive process, all that is left of the roots and shoots and grass that he consumed at some point. Unlike the antelope species. He's not a ruminant, he's a hind-gut fermenter, but like an elephant or a zebra. So that dung that he's deposited will be quite coarse, not everything will be digested. Very inefficient way of digesting his food. He's definitely disappeared. But an animal like that, incredibly fast and incredibly powerful. Now the interesting thing about warthog is that they are, whilst they are pretty much entirely herbivorous, it is not unheard of, particularly in the drought situations, for them to enjoy the odd scavenging of a carcass. And in fact, there was a very, very strange case not too long ago when the impala were giving birth, that a warthog was recorded to have attacked and killed, effectively hunted, a baby impala. Just like their pig cousins, they can have a very wide and very varied diet. A lot of the animals show that level of adaptability. Dacre do it as well. And it's not just carcasses they feed on, but utilizing every aspect of the plant life out here. And Becky, you were wondering, do any of the animals chew on the bark like the white-tailed deer do on your side of the globe? And the answer is yes. Elephants, actually, since we're here, I might as well give you a good example, since I can see a perfect demonstration of where this has occurred already. Now, I know you were asking about antelope, but here we have the evidence of the elephants coming through and stripping and actually killing this knobthorn tree. It looks like a knobthorn tree. The bark all splintered away. They would have used their tusks to gouge out the pieces that they're after. And the white-tailed deer in your area would be after the cambium layer, just like the elephants and the other animals out here that do exactly the same thing. The xylem and the phloem, basically transporting water and nutrients throughout the tree, and that bark is essential, which is why this tree is actually going to die. It no longer has its internal, essentially the plant equivalent of our circulatory system, our veins and our arteries. That's what the bark is to the trees. And yes, antelope, you just listen to why the squirrel is also shouting. Hornbills are a bit upset. I just have a funny feeling there's a leopard hiding somewhere in here. But yes, antelope will do it as well. They will strip the bark, and I have even seen giraffe feeding on the bark of trees. Let's head over to Bushwalk and have a look at one of these different creatures.
Now, you've seen these grasses before. I know I've shown them to you. The wonderfully named Chloris roxburghiana, or feathered chloris. But what is interesting here is that we've got a number of them that still have their seeds or husks on them, and a number of them that don't. And the question obviously arises as to what, Brian, has happened to the seeds of Chloris roxburghiana. Now here is an example. Here are the seeds. You can see the little seeds where my finger is pointing now. And on the seeds is an awn, and the awn is a sort of wing which will allow the seeds to be transferred by the winds to various other parts of this magnificent wilderness wonderland that we find ourselves in. There it is. But this particular piece of chloris has not got no seeds on it. And the question is, where's the seeds gone? I'll show you. Come over here. Here we have a collection of husks, and these husks have been placed here by a highly industrious insect, a member of the order Hymenoptera, and there is the entrance to their little nest. Ants. Now, unusually, I mean, many ants are carnivorous. In fact, I think most of them are carnivorous. These ants are clearly herbivorous or granivorous. They eat grains. and they will dehusk and take the seeds down into their nest over there. And they've crawled up all of these grass stalks of Chlorus roxburghiana, and they've pulled off the seeds, carried them back here, dehusked them, and then put them back into the nest. And I think that's remarkably industrious of them. And if you look through this whole sort of field that we have around here of this feathered Chlorus, you can see half of them are dehusked and de-seeded and the other half are not. And I think they're probably not around at the moment for two reasons. Firstly, a herd of buffalo slept here last night, and that could well have sort of squashed the nest. And secondly, it's still quite chilly, and so I suspect that these ants have not quite decided to come out yet. They'll probably wait for the sun when it's a bit warmer and their bodies can warm up and they can move a bit quicker, and they'll be out in force collecting the seeds of Chlorus roxburghiana. Right, I'm speaking at this slightly subdued volume because we have heard a herd of buffalo around here. You like that, Brian? We heard a herd of buffalo. They're funny. And they're over there. We don't know where exactly. We're not sort of tracking them specifically, but we just need to be a little bit careful in case we come across them. We came into this area hoping to find whatever it was that those monkeys were yelling at earlier this morning, but we haven't come up with any tracks. Could be that the lions are following this herd of buffalo. Not sure. Let's go and see that. On we go. So we'll walk a little bit more slowly, speak in a little bit more subdued fashion. This is a very interesting tree that I don't know. While I try and discover what it is, Jamie has got the home of a bird.
This is very interesting. When I first started working at WildEarth, I was being shown all of the secret spots, and one of them was the hawk eagle, the African hawk eagle nest on Central Road. And ever since then, I have never seen the African hawk eagle pair in that nest. But look at this. They have returned once again, and we will be coming up to their potential egg-laying time in the next 2 or so months. And the raptors lay their eggs relatively early. There you can see the whiteness of the chest. These are definitely in my top favorite eagles. Look how I think they're actually busy constructing and working on this nest, just making sure that it is up and ready for them to lay their eggs in the next few days. I personally think that African hawk eagles are probably one of the most beautiful eagles to see. Oh, look at it hopping around like that. And the awesome thing about them is that usually, if you've got one African hawk eagle, the other will be elsewhere nearby. They hunt together as a pair, the male and the female, the one flying slightly higher than the other, and therefore being able to ambush any birds. There's particularly specialized francolin and guinea fowl hunters. If the guinea fowl flies up and the one misses the attack, then the other is suitably positioned in order to catch it as it flies away. Oh, there goes the other one hopping to the nest. There, look, it's got a stick in its beak, laying it down. So they are busy preparing their nest again. This is wonderful. It means that they are planning on sticking around here for the next few months. And raptors will use the same nest site year after year, regardless of whether or not they are migratory birds or if they are here throughout the year. The African hawk eagle, what is it doing? Is it coughing up something? Looks like it might be. The one on the right over the nest. Could be getting rid of a pellet, just like owls sometimes do. I haven't seen any evidence of a chick inside that nest. I think it's a little bit early. I don't think they're going to be feeding a chick at the moment. So it's not regurgitating food. Might just be it has ingested too many small bones and feathers and is just trying to cough that up. The little bird that keeps fluttering about, by the way, is not a juvenile. The one behind there, it looks like there is a starling at the back. It could be a starling. It's very far away, obviously, and straight into the sun, but I think by the shape of the body, it's a starling hopping about. It's interesting how a truce is formed. There's also a fork-tailed drongo flying around. A truce is formed around a nest site like this, and the smaller birds usually mob them. Oh, there we go, and instantly the squirrel starts. And that, I think, has been the source of the alarm calls in this block. And nothing to do with a leopard for now, but more to do with the presence of specialized bird and squirrel hunters. So exciting stuff. Though we can't get any closer, we do have the camera with the incredible zoom, so we'll be able to monitor the progress of their nest over the next few months. It's one of those magical things about Safari Live. Right, let us find out what Sam has located for you on Cheetah Plains.
We are back on the Cheetah Plains and we are now looking into the distance of the Mala territory, and we can just see those wildebeest that we saw earlier. Well, not earlier, yesterday. We saw those wildebeest sitting out on the Cheetah Plains area. We were sitting with the youngster, and there's the youngster. It's just gone next to the mother there. And so it's a few of them. It's a big herd of wildebeest that are moving around these open areas, and why they like the open areas is exactly what we saw last night. We saw a male lion coming from probably not far away from where they are right now, came out of the bushes, and all the wildebeest got up onto their feet and started barking, or grunting rather, that's the right sound that they make. They started grunting at a lion. So that is a huge indicator of why they like the open areas, because they can see the predators as they come out into the open, and they can grunt at them, and that will help all the other species from zebra to giraffe also locate that predator. So the more eyes, the more ears, the more safe it is out here to be a herbivore. So they would have migrated all the way from Cheetah Plains down there to Mala. It's not like one of your great migrations, but it's nonetheless a big walk that they made. And what you are seeing now is actually very far away from us. This camera is able to zoom in and help us see exactly what's going on from afar, which is it's just incredible really, because then you can really depict behavior better in terms of what they're doing and how they interact with each other. Sometimes when we're on our vehicles and we see them, their behavior is so that that they're interacting with the vehicle in terms of being nervous, grunting and that sort of stuff. And most of the time wildebeest won't do that with our vehicle, but they'll still look at the vehicle. Whereas here we are sitting at a distance watching them as they graze the short grasses of the plains and spend time together in these large groups. So we don't often see this on our property at Vuyatela that we stay at Juma. We mainly just see one big wildebeest that will look after an area. And the reason why we don't see these big groups is because we don't have those big open areas on Vuyatela. And so the females and the calves will prefer to go to those males that are looking after the territory that is a lot bigger and closer to water. But we're going to carry on, see if we can pick up any leopard tracks or potentially see something else might be walking out into the bushes. With that, let's go and get on our feet and see the bush with James.
Now we are here on the termite mound, not far from where I last saw you, in fact just the other side, and we have found a thieving wretch of an animal, the dewdrop spider, kleptoparasite to the golden orbweb spider that lives on this incredible array of incredibly powerful silk. And that thing was just stealing, I don't know if you can see, Brian, can you see them both?
No, it moved.
So the dewdrop spider has moved, but there's a fly just above it. And that fly has been caught in the golden orbweb spider's nest. Here it goes. It's approaching the fly now. And it has no business eating that fly. Of course, this is fantastic to watch. I've never seen this. I've seen these dewdrop spiders hundreds of times. That fly is caught in the web of the golden orb web spider, and we'll show you her vast size just now. She is completely unaware that her breakfast is being stolen by the pilfering little wretch that is the dewdrop spider. I don't think anyone really knows why it is that she doesn't react to the little spider like that, who she could overpower in, well, I mean, very short order indeed. And maybe it is that sort of very shiny mercury back that you can't see where you are. I can see it where I'm sitting. It's like it's like a mercury drop on the back of the spider. Maybe it reflects light at an angle such that she can't understand what it is, or perhaps it is that it looks like water, and therefore she doesn't react to it. But you can see there that the fly, which has very thankfully been caught by the spider, is now being eaten by the kleptoparasite. I think that's brilliant. Now, interestingly, a spider, and I don't know what the story is here, interestingly, a spider's venom is largely actually digestive enzymes. So when a spider bites a piece of prey like this little fly here, it injects venom into it, and that venom is an enzyme which will begin the digestive process, and it will almost liquefy the internal organs or insides of whatever prey item it is that it happens to have caught. And so I don't know if that particular spider has been bitten and left by the golden orb. I don't think so. I think what's happened is that the fly has been caught by the web, and that little dewdrop spider will come and bite it, inject its own venom, and then suck out the insects, insides, probably before the golden orb web spider even realizes what's going on. I think that's what goes on, but I'm not entirely sure. Now, if we come up here, there are 3 or 4 other interesting spiders living in this golden orb web spider's nest. The first one, of course, is the actual golden orb web spider female herself. That's her there. And X-Ranger, while you look at her, you want to know if the web is yellow because of its pollen. No, it's not. It's not pollen at all, X-Ranger. It's yellow because that's how it comes out, and that's why it's called a golden orb web spider. It's got nothing to do with the color of the actual spider. It's got to do with the color of the orb web. So that is the owner, builder, and real estate manager of this entire area. She does everything on this web, and she basically has to look after a whole suite or community of creatures. The next thing to look at is this one here, and that is the male. And there have been so few golden orb web spiders this year because we haven't had a lot of rain. Normally they're as common as you like around every bush, as Brian was saying when they were at Thorny Bush. He said that you couldn't walk behind a tree without having one crawl over your face. They're totally harmless to people, but because we've had such a poor rainy season, we haven't seen them much. And so that's the male there. I think there's another male. There's a smaller male somewhere around here, and you can see that if he doesn't satisfy her, she will very quickly be devoured, and I think that does happen quite frequently. And whatever she eats, and interestingly I think probably much larger normally than that fly that is currently still being eaten by that kleptoparasite, whatever she eats she wraps up and she puts in this line of husks, and you can see here what she's eaten. I'm going to remove the bottom section, which is not going to harm her, I promise. And what that does, I think that line is a deterrent to things like birds, which she couldn't eat, but which will get absolutely hammered or tied up in this web. Here is what she's eaten. She's eaten flies. These are all the exoskeletons of the things she's eaten, containing the chitin, which is the exoskeleton. And so she sucked out the insides and then wrapped up all the chitin and exoskeletons, legs and wings in this sort of I guess what would you call it, Brian? A sausage of a sausage of skins, which will stop, I think, birds flying into this web. Absolutely amazing. There are 5 or 6 different dewdrop spiders on here, and let's just have one last look at this one here. The first one that we looked at, it's still, in fact, it's now properly in the process of being eaten by the kleptoparasite. Brian,
James.
I bet you're not sad to see that fly in there.
No.
No.
Are you?
No, I'm really happy. It makes me feel good that the fly has met its end, because they have been very trying this year. Steph was just saying that he reckons there's so many flies because half the flies' predators aren't around this year, and one example was something called a banded groundling, which is a dragonfly that eats flies. And obviously dragonflies are almost universally require water to exist, and there's been so little water this year. So these things like banded groundlings and no doubt many other species of fly predators have not been around this year. Right, I think we've exhausted opportunities for entertainment at this golden orb-web spider's nest. The buffalo we can still kind of hear, but then they go silent, so maybe they're having a snooze. We'll keep walking through here and maybe we'll get a view of them. If not, we'll find something else like this to show you. In the meantime, let's head back across to Samwise Gamgee. He has got a tool-headed bird to show you.
Have a look at the hammerkop, which in other words means the hammerhead. Look at that. Now we've got a perfect profile, side-on profile of that hammerhead. Is he about to jump down? Ooh, splash. This is how we wanted to see him. He's going to be wading into that water there. With his feet, he'll try and push out any frogs or fish that he can see, and then there we go, gets it. So potentially we might just see him eating a frog now. Let's give him a few seconds to see if he finds anything as he wades. So what I mean by wade is that he uses his legs to just kind of wash the water around his feet, and that's when he helps him feel for any insects or bugs that might be down there, frogs, fish. So we might just get a really good example of that, and the profile that he had, or that he just had now. There he goes. Obviously didn't see any frogs or fish around there. It was very cool to see the hammerkop. So that was actually the first time that Dave's seen one. So I've seen one or two. Aaron, if I heard your question correctly, did you ask, do you have any Canadian geese? Aaron, I don't think we have. No, we don't have Canadian geese, unless I'm really not or clueless of it. I don't think we have Canadian geese. What we do have though is Egyptian geese, which are also monogamous, much like the steenbok that we saw earlier, like to fly as a pair. Steenbok, of course, is an antelope, not a bird. But it's very cool to see the hammerkop. We've got that on our bird list already. So Rachel's question is, it seems that a few of the smaller animals are monogamous. Rachel, it's very well pointed out. Well, is it a good survival strategy is the question, and I presume it is, because it helps that species stay together and mate and look after each other and help each other in terms of protection and grooming and all that sort of thing. So I definitely think that it is an adaptation or growth into being a monogamous pair to grow together, which is actually quite beautiful if you think about it. But while we go looking through this thick bush, so we've come out of the open areas and now we're going deep into the thick brush. Maybe we'll find some more new birds, which I'll be very happy for, but maybe a leopard, who knows. At the moment, let's go and find Jamie. While she's looking through the bush, she might have just found a kudu.
Here's an animal that is perfectly at home in thick, dense vegetation. Isn't he absolutely magnificent? A male kudu in his absolute prime. Look at that. The emblem of sandparks is the spiraling kudu horns. You can see how thick his neck is. Oh, you can even see there's injuries behind his ear. He's got scratches there that could well have come from a fight with another kudu. I'm just going to let him walk behind us a little bit, and then we'll turn around and we'll try and get another view of him. Oh, look at the power of that animal. It is a huge antelope. Those muscular legs capable of clearing a 6-foot jump without even having to think about it from a standing start. Now, an animal like that is surely royalty of the antelope. Let's try and get one last view of him. I think as we go backwards, he's probably going to run from us. And those spiral horns, particularly of this male, would probably be enough to intimidate any rival. There would be very few out there that could match his strength and size. And much like Nyala, kudu would sooner display to other males rather than fight. This will be our last view. I think he's going to keep moving away from us. See that the thick beard at the bottom of his neck? All a way of making himself look big and scary rather than risking physical injury by coming into physical contact with another male. Beautiful widespread horns, 2 twirls, coming up to 3, which is the maximum for a kudu bull. He's actually got about 2.5 twirls. Oh, little bit of undignified drool there. Now, Margaret, his horns are not quite widespread enough for him to be the kudu that we have nicknamed Zeus. Now, Zeus is relatively recognizable. What we saw now with that kudu bull is he's sort of picture perfect. He's a textbook kudu bull. Now, Zeus is a roughly equal size, although I don't think his body is quite as... It's a very stocky bull. But Zeus's horns go out at an angle almost, I would say, close to 90 degrees. They sort of move away from each other. They sort of move away at right angles to each other. Much more widespread than a kudu bull like that. And we've often spoken about whether or not that would be a disadvantage to him, or it would actually be an advantage, because kudu, when they do clash, they obviously go head to head and horn to horn. And what does happen more often than you would expect it to is they can actually get stuck together like that, locked together. And naturally, they don't quite have the problem-solving ability, nor indeed the teamwork skills to untangle themselves. And very often, not very often, but occasionally, kudu can die in that way. It's one of the reasons why the display always comes first. They would much rather intimidate their rivals than actually have to physically fight them. It's exactly the same thing that Nyala do when they do their slow dance. All known as, it's always in some form of lateral presentation, presenting the side view of your body to your opponent. And it's not unique amongst the antelope species. Rhino will do it. When they come into contact with each other, they'll size each other up by walking sideways next to each other. And leopards will do it as well. Unlike lions, lions will go straight into a fight. They don't mess around, they don't hang around. But leopards will actually sort of move side to side next to each other, particularly males growling and trying to intimidate with size and strength rather than an actual display of that strength. So whilst that was not Zeus, that kudu would certainly be a physical match for one of our favorite kudu characters. I haven't seen Zeus in quite a long time, but I have been on leave, so it doesn't mean anything. He could well still be hanging out in his usual area. And it's one thing that I think that taking a job at Safari Live has taught me, is recognizing individual animals that I might not usually distinguish between the different individuals, like Zeus or like the buffalo bulls that we see. And what I've found is that it's actually given me a deeper understanding of the way in which these animals' home ranges work. That will change. It will change as we go into the drought and as they're forced into different areas for access to resources, food and water. But it's still been an interesting journey and an interesting discovery, because Zeus generally hangs out with he's one of 5 kudu bulls regularly seen around Impala Road all the way east to Vuetela main access. That bull that we saw could well have been one of them, but he really is I would say one of the largest, not in terms of horn size, in terms of body size, one of the largest kudu bulls that I've ever seen. And I've seen kudu before. I said that they are capable of jumping 6 feet from a standing start. I have seen them do it. I have seen them jump a game fence without even a run-up or anything like that. They just bundle up their muscles and spring over. From something large and glorious to one of the smaller aspects of life out here, I think that James has found a lizard.
There was a skink. Oh, there he is, Brian. He's on the other side there, on the left. Can you see him?
Yep.
There's a skink there, everybody. Fantastic little lizard. Trying to find something nice to eat on this log. That's fantastic. Still got him there.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. I just had to take a picture of him. Beautiful. And I don't know what kind of skink he is, but he's just, as Steph said, hunting the log. So he's walking along the log, trying to find something to eat. We did see him find a fly and devour that. Well done, clever skink. Eat as many flies as you can. And because we're standing totally still, he's just kind of getting on with his day. And he'll probably stay sun side of that log so that he can remain warm. But still, the temperature hasn't gone up too much in the sun. It's very pleasant. But I think it's probably about 18 degrees Celsius, maybe 20 degrees Celsius by now, which is still quite chilly for a lizard. That is incredible. What a wonderful picture of him. See his claws? Very unlike the claws of a gecko. So he won't be able to sort of hang upside down like a gecko can, but will be incredibly fast and nimble over a dead log like this. In it he will find termites, he will find beetle larvae, he will probably lay his eggs, or if it's a she will lay her eggs at some stage. I think this is just wonderful. Perfect. See him watching us? Brian, you can get quite a nice angle if you come around here. Very, very slowly. You're stuck. Brian's stuck, everyone. He can't move. I think this is so gorgeous. It really is marvellous to be able to see an animal like this. So kind of, I mean, he's not rare, I don't think. But to see them in this kind of environment where they're not afraid of us, not running away, is brilliant. So cool. I'm afraid I can't really tell you anything else about him. I don't know what he is. I'm going to try and move around the other side of him very slowly. You can see his throat moving up and down as he breathes. I'm going to move around the other side so I can get a better view of him. And that might help me to identify him a bit later on. And I can get to a book of reptiles. You're stuck on a fairly substantial bush. Would you like me to move it?
Please.
You still see the lizard. It's very tall, Brian. Okay, there you are. We're just going to move very slowly around him, everyone. I'm now holding a substantial tree out of Brian's way. So I'm so very strong, Brian. You see that?
Oh, I can't touch this.
You'll have to take my word for it.
Okay.
Margaret, you say, aren't these the lizards with the stubby rear end? No, this one doesn't. This one, from where I'm standing now, has got a long tail. He's got a sort of charcoal flank, and he's got a longitudinally striped back, also charcoal, but two very distinct white stripes running down each side of his back. Brian, try and come over this side. It is the most amazing sight. I think he's had a very good breakfast. That's a very small, if you duck 1 inch, you'll get underneath that. There we go. Oh, don't move. I mean the lizard, I don't mean you. And Stacey, I'm afraid I'm really not much of a herpetologist, but you say you think they're territorial, and if they are, how big their territories are. Stacey, I think you'd probably find that his territory would be in the vicinity of this dead tree. So he's on a dead log, which in turn has come off a very large dead knobthorn tree. And I think you'll find that it's probably an area of about maybe a radius of 10 feet either side of this dead tree. That would be my guess. I think that he's especially adapted to moving on dead logs like this. And so, you know, for him to move across land terrestrially to another kind of area where there's a pile of dead logs, I think would probably be quite difficult for him. But that said, I mean, I don't think his entire sort of genetic legacy is bound up in this area. So I doubt all of his ancestors came from somewhere around here. So it's a very good question. I don't know. That would be my guess. Isn't he fantastic? He's looking at Brian now. And he'll move his head like that, I think, for much the same way that monkeys do, to judge the distance to us. And you'll see he's got his eyes on either side of his head. And that means that his ability to judge distance will be relatively poor. And so in order to judge the distance between us and him, we are obviously the potential threat that he is trying to sort of gauge. He needs to move his head from side to side. And that just changes this picture of where we are for him and helps him to decide how close we are. He's had a fat breakfast, Brian. He looks enormously belly full. Could be a female about to give birth, not birth, about to lay eggs. Definitely going to try and find whatever this thing is. And Natasha, I'm afraid I can't answer your question either. You want to know how many eggs lizards usually lay. I mean, I found a little nest once where there were 10 or so eggs. But, you know, there are so many different kinds of lizards that I suspect there's a huge variation in the number of eggs that they lay. I would suspect that they lay proportionately far fewer than something like a crocodile, which can lay tens of, I think up to 100 eggs. Maybe even more, and probably proportionately less than a turtle. But I don't know. I'm guessing wildly here, Natasha. I'm definitely going to have to go and do some research. If nothing else, this little lizard has provided me with an indication of my own ignorance. Ah, look at him. And there you can see his ears. Oh, well, this is incredible. Brian, I don't know if you can, if he turns his head the other way, just behind his eyes is the ear opening, just above his right leg. And I can hear the buffalo behind us as well, but they're a long way behind us. And WildEarth girly, I think you were thinking that that might be a tick on the side of his head. It isn't. It is definitely his ear opening. So he will be listening to me talking nonsense about him, thinking, no, it's not really true. I don't have a territory at all. I'm really good over the land. But I think you'll find that those legs are especially adapted to living on the uneven surface of a rotting piece of branch. He is a very special fellow. I think we should be able to identify him when we get home with a field guide, because he is fairly distinctive with those white stripes or light brown stripes down his flanks. And John, you're in Arkansas, you reckon it could be a striped skink. Okay, that's great. I've no doubt somebody out there in the Twitterverse will have a perfectly good idea of what it is, far better than mine. So thank you, John. A striped skink, you reckon? Brilliant. Brian is now sitting only about 1.5 meters from him, so that's about 4 feet, maybe 5 feet. And skink is not reacting. I think he knows something's up though. And he'll be able to scuttle off at a great speed now, given the amount of sun that he's had on him. His physiology will be pumping. So should he need to escape, he will be able to very easily. Look at the way he's breathing. Let's try and get a little bit closer. We're habituating a skink, Brian. Some can habituate leopards. You and I. We can habituate skinks. There he goes. That was an amazing sighting. I'm going to have to go and do some research on skinks. Thank you very much for all of your questions on him. And Brian, you say striped skink. Oh, I can see him moving across the ground now. He's not too appalling on his feet, but he's going off into some more cover and possibly to another dead log. Incredibly fast, amazingly quick. Brilliant, thank you very much. Well done, Brian. Good job. So we can hear the buffalo still, or a buffalo, calling way in the distance up there. I don't know, they may well be moving off sort of to the north. Anyway, we'll turn around this area and quickly have a look in this hole here. AJ, you want to know if those skinks can drop their tails. I'm 99% sure they can, yeah. So were you to touch the tail would fall off, squirm about the place, and he would run away. Now, the only reason I'm approaching this hole with quite such confidence is that I've seen Steph walk past it already. So I don't think anything's going to come bustling out. But Brian and Steph and I this morning had a wonderful sighting of a warthog and her babies that came bustling out of a burrow just like this. And that's exactly the kind of place where a warthog would live. Opened up by an aardvark, of course, but I suspect this is a warthog burrow now. There are a couple of warthog tracks around here, and they'll be long off into the bushes looking for their breakfast and the daily forage, which of course will become more and more sparsely distributed as we go into the dry season. Alrighty, we're going to continue off towards the east, and then we're going to bend back towards the camp. Let's head across to Jamie, see what she's up to, and I'll catch up with you just now.
I'm making one last ditch effort as James starts returning to camp to find where on earth Tingana disappeared to sometime last night. Now, the last track I've had disappeared north into Buffelshoek. That was the freshest track I've had so far this morning. So he's gone into Buffelshoek, but that does not mean that he's stayed there. Buffelshoek being the property to the north of our boundary. I want to check all the way around Sydney's Dam, Aubrey's roadside. He was moving back in this direction. The freshest track suggested he was moving west. So maybe, just maybe, again, supposition to a degree, but maybe he decided to head up, chase away Gajima, or at least call and remind Gajima just who's boss in this particular area, and then moved back further to the west. If we want to extend our conjecture even further, Tsakani, that female leopard that I saw for the first time a couple of days ago, quite a young girl, she was moving through the area very clearly, testing all of the scents, phlegm and grimacing at all of the places where Tingana had marked his territory. And it made me wonder about the possibility that she might be coming into estrus. Fingers crossed in the next few days. It is pure conjecture, but it's nice to build up a sort of a storyline in your head as to what is going on, as long as you don't stick to it too rigidly. But there's always the possibility that she's going to come through and mate with Tingana, or he might even be looking for her. I just wanted to check out the far western reaches of Djuma, just to make sure. Now yesterday, Vin and myself were on bushwalk with Steph, and we walked all the way from camp to Buffelshoek Dam and back to camp. And there was a very, very brief, we were on air for a very brief portion of time. Unfortunately, we disappeared off your screens and stayed disappeared for the rest of the morning, just because we couldn't seem to get any signal or any picture. But for those of you who were watching yesterday morning, and we went to that buffalo carcass where the Nkuhumas had killed the buffalo, and we picked up a piece of the waterbuck and the rib. Now, I'm not sure how many of you thought this was some kind of camera fault or something had gone wrong, but you may have noticed a complete bright pink tinge to, and I'm not talking like old blood or anything like that, I'm speaking neon pink around the waterbuck skull and around the rib cage that we were looking at. And apparently it's something that's been seen once before with Scott and a buffalo skull. Now my guess was that it was some kind of bacteria or some kind of almost lichen, so a bacteria, algae mix that was on that buffalo skull, or maybe even a fungus. But if any of you out there, and I know that we've got some incredible viewers with extraordinary knowledge, if any of you out there might know what would turn an old bone bright pink, bright pink, if you know specifically perhaps the type of fungus or the type of bacteria, I would absolutely love to know about it. I've been trying to look it up, but we've been struggling a little bit with internet and phone signal over the last few days. So I'm reaching out to your resources around the globe. If you could tell me what you think made that bright pink color, I would love to hear it. It's interesting, it's fascinating. And we picked it up and we sort of handled it for a while until Steph pointed out that perhaps that wasn't the most sensible idea in the world, since we have absolutely no idea as to what caused it and just how dangerous it might be. But yes, please send that through. If you do know what it is, you can always do that on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or email through to questions@wildearth.tv. Let's see if we can't figure it out. I'd love to learn a bit more. I assume it is some kind of microscopic creature that is in the process of breaking down what remains of those bones and essentially recycling the final portion of that animal and returning its nutrients to the overarching ecosystem. Interesting. I'd love to know what you think it might be. I'm going to do one last check. I've been trying to follow all of the paths that Tingana tends to walk in this area to see if he hasn't popped out somewhere here. So far, the last track's gone into Buffelshoek. Now, we of course are very, very accustomed to searching for tracks in the sand, and at the moment the sand is nice and soft and dry, making life relatively easy for us. But Brian, you are curious to know whether or not we as guides could track in the snow, and whether or not we ever have. And I've never tracked in deep snow. I have done it before when I was at university in the UK, on one of the odd occasions where it snowed properly and didn't just sort of turn into grey sludge half an hour later. I went tracking through the fields and I tried to follow deer, and then I eventually managed to track down a bird that was hiding out near a frozen riverbed. So I have tried it before, and yes, it is entirely possible as long as you don't have fresh snow falling on top of it, which would clearly make it difficult, just like for us when the wind blows and it obscures the tracks. Or, for example, where a herd of elephants walks through and walks on top of all of your tracks at the same time. So, Brian, yes, we could do it. We could apply exactly the same principles, and there's an art to tracking that isn't necessarily sand-based. One of the most important things about tracking is not to focus on the one track you're looking at, but it's about a little bit of intuition, putting yourself into the mind of the animal and looking further afield, looking at other signs, looking at the bigger picture. And I imagine that would be quite useful in snow. It would be something, oh, you've got me started on tracking now. Now I have a track quiz for you. James, Richard, you were asking for a track quiz earlier. Here's one that might catch you out. Can you get that sweep mark there? Perfect, thank you. Right, this is the absolute perfect, the epitome of what I was trying to say. Have a look at that track and see if you can tell me what made it. And we'll do a scan of the surrounding area around it. Let me jump out. This particular question has caught me out before. I got it eventually, but in a tracking assessment, it was a question that was asked of me. Now, I don't want to mess anything up. I don't want to obscure anything. This is fresh. This is a fresh track. And if we look around it, look and see what you can see all the way around. This whole area is relevant, right up the bank, and I'll explain to you why it's relevant. All the way along the bank is also important. So I'm looking at this sweep up the bank, and it stops here. So this part is not part of this track. It's a sweep mark. Let's see if you can figure out what made that track. Sometimes thinking outside of the box, oh, sorry, Bim. I'll just walk straight into your shot. Sometimes thinking outside of the box is what you need to do when exploring different tracks and different possibilities. And oh dear, I'm lost in a jumble of cables. Here we And it is not a broom. It is not a broom. Although, that's actually not a bad answer. It was not a broom. Clever answer, but not the one I'm looking for. And it is not a porcupine, although that does look similar to a porcupine walking through. Let's head over to Sam, find out what he's doing. You can think on the answer.
So we have just arrived onto Juma's property, and we've just come across a white-backed vulture. Incredible shot of this vulture standing on a dead knobthorn tree. And so we are still quite a distance away from it. There's another few flying in a thermal above this white-backed vulture at the moment. Let's just see if we can see any. There's another one over there. and there's a few more just above it. So it looks like they're flying on some thermals. So we're going to see if we can get a little bit closer to this white-backed vulture and see if we can get a good visual on it. So vultures can tell us many different things. So potentially there has been a kill in the area. I'm not sure if anyone's driven this road this morning. So there could very well be something that has been killed. So we'll have a look and see. In the meantime, let's try and get close so we can get some good detail on this white-backed vulture. And even if we can just watch him fly away, that could be incredible. I'm going to stop here and then get a good picture of it. Look at that. Isn't that a beautiful vulture? So this vulture, as you can see, has dark eyes, a white collar, and downy white feathers on the neck. See some whitish feathers there on the neck. Oof, what's that sound? Can you hear that? That was an alarm call. Where's that coming from that way? So something's going on here. The vultures are around and now there's an alarm call. So I'm pretty sure that that was a monkey alarm call. So there's something in the thicket here. Just next to it there's another starling in that tree. Have a look. It is a glossy starling. Just while we listen to that alarm call again. So that's another one of the starlings. So it's beautiful to see both a starling and a vulture in this old knobthorn tree. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 vultures circling above us. 5. There could be just 6, 7. There's more than that. It's incredible to watch. Something's going on here. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer. Potentially this vulture won't fly away. And we can get even more of a visual of it. I've definitely heard an alarm call. And there it goes. The size of those wings. Alright, so vultures are right here. Great camera work, Dave. Let's see what we can find just over the horizon here. What are these wide-backed vultures? From vultures to spiders, let's get on a walk with James.
Well, this is the other major orb web spider that we get here, everybody, and I've done him before, of course, but I mean, there's no reason not to do him again. This is a garden orb web spider, and I suspect you get a number of different species of them. But so they probably, you know, the garden orb webs that we see belong to a certain genus. And this chap, you can actually see his spinnerets. Those spinnerets are the sort of, I guess, almost prehensile sort of openings that he has on his abdomen there, or she has on her abdomen. That's her. And that's how she basically makes this incredible orb web. Now, X-Rang, you were asking about the golden orb web and the yellow sheen that is on that web. This garden orb web does not have the yellow sheen. You can see it's plain white. And much like the golden orb keeps that larder of shells, so this garden orb creates what we call a stabilimentum here. And the stabilimentum is in order to probably stabilize the web to some extent, but I think largely to stop animals that would destroy the web but which are too big for it to eat flying into the web. The other thing that you can see, Brian, if you come really in close, you can probably see the fangs or the pedipalps, which are not the same thing. You can see the pedipalps are those kind of translucent orange bits on the front of the mouth. Can you see those? We'll just see how close we can get it. There are tiny little things. Oh, he's moved. She's moved. Now you'll get them. You'll get them beautifully now. See, they've got little hairs on the end of them. Those are the pedipalps, and those will be used to feed things into her mouth. And her fangs, with which she will deliver the venom into her prey, will be just underneath those. I'm going to come around the other side there. And just see if we can't spot the fangs. Let me get out of the sun. So the fangs, yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to see them. They're probably not quite big enough. But on a baboon spider, for example, you can definitely see the fangs. Isn't that amazing? Look at the amazing colours, black and yellow and orange. And the amazing dexterity with which she manages to hang on to the thin strands of silk that come out of those spinnerets, the maroon coloured spinnerets on the back of her abdomen. Brilliant. Right, so that's the garden orb web spider. Still no buffalo. They're starting to sound even more and more distant, so I think they're probably heading north. That's not to say we don't need to keep our eyes open, of course, because there could be buffalo bulls all over the place here that have dropped off the herd, bored of keeping up with the youngsters and the females. We also interestingly found something very unbushy, and that of course is one of these. And now even the hyenas out here seemingly have succumbed to the Western diet of junk food, which is very distressing, isn't it, Brian?
It is.
Yeah. Soon there's going to be a diabetic outbreak. We're going to have to be supplying insulin on tap to the hyenas here. It's all a very distressing situation.
Fast food joints springing up all over the
Exactly. Just no good at all. Well, as Brian and I contemplate the strangeness of the hyena's diet and the fact that all things will change in the face of Western culture, let us head across to Jamie, who is at Sydney's Dam.
Sounds as though the naughty hyenas have been up to no good, raiding all kinds of things. We've arrived at Sydney's Dam for our last ditched effort. No sign of Tingana tracks popping out yet. So maybe he's just doing the standard Tingana thing and enjoying a rest underneath a bush after a long night of patrolling. Not much happening at Sydney's. Some waterbuck and a couple of hippos underneath the dead tree. And one chirping go-away bird. So we've got some answers to the tracking quiz that I've suggested. It's not hippo whiskers, which is a good, interesting answer, and it does leave a sort of a similar swipe. It is not ants, and it is not, although ants was also, you guys are thinking very clearly. You're giving really well thought out answers, but they're not quite what we're looking for in this case. So not hippos, not ants. The ants trail would have extended further. It would have had a particular start and a finish. A hippo whisker trail would have left, you would have seen the tracks of the hippo. Their legs are not that long and their heads don't extend that far away from them. That's why I circled the area around it. I wanted you to know that all of the information you were looking for is there. Now, unicorn, I cannot prove that it was not a unicorn, but I think it's safe to say that it probably wasn't. I think now it's time to give you the answer, and I'm trying to think about the best way to do it because I've moved on from that area. You guys are too quick for me. Kiara, you've got it absolutely right. I was going to give you a clue and say that the climactic conditions of the day were quite important in that factoring in the answer. But Kiara's on top of it, and it was indeed a piece of grass. And have a look, if any of you screenshotted that particular track quiz that I asked you, you'll actually see herringbone grass lying on, that has been bent over and is lying in the road. So if I jump off now, I'll try and show you. It's not the best, it's not going to come out as the clearest example. Let's try and uncable myself again. But this is probably going to be the best spot to try and demonstrate exactly what I mean. Oh, let me not be in the sun's way. And the soil is a little bit coarser than it was there, but essentially that sweep, it's not going to show through because of the stones, but essentially that sweep was caused by grass blowing backwards and forwards. So it was blowing in a direction and then bouncing back. And we've come to exactly the wrong soil type, so you'll just have to take my word for it that that is what caused that sweeping tracking motion in the grass, or was by the grass. And in that case, if you wanted to know the type of grass, it was a herringbone grass, because it sort of looks like the backbone with the ribs of a fish. Sorry, that was not the clearest example, but unfortunately we're just in the wrong place for a demonstration. Oh, goodness. There we go. So that was what was responsible. It was the, hold on, Pogonathria squarosa grass. The bush full of secret signs and sounds, including that call of the go-away bird, which Sam has found for you.
So we just had a go-away bird, a beautiful, beautiful shot of a go-away bird, and then I think he just decided to go away. So it's okay, it's all right, no worries. Beautiful go-away birds. They will often alarm call at us when we. There he goes. So he's not going away anyway. He's just going to come back, give us another reposition. There we go. So he just jumped back into frame. And this is the bird that will often tell us to go away when we are on foot. And the sound goes like this. Coo-wee, coo-wee. There's another one there. Joey in Australia said that the African dusky flycatcher was the 100th bird that he's got on his list. Joey, I'm so excited to hear about that. I'm starting to realize more and more that birds is the one thing that I'm super, super interested in, and trying to find more of them is going to definitely be something I want to take on into the future of the guiding around here. So it's been a very birdie morning. Really enjoyed looking for the different birds around Cheetah Plains and now Vuyatela. I've had a fantastic morning, Dave. Thank you for being on camera and getting those beautiful shots. We shall see you for the sunset safari, and James is still walking around that bush. I'm not sure where he is, but let's go and see what he's up to. See you later.
We have found a new stick, everyone. Steph found me 2 pieces of sneezewood. We're going to decide which will be a better stick, but just have a quick look at the fine grain on this. It's an amazingly fine-grained wood, the sneezewood Pterozygium obliquum. On that note, we're going to greet you a fond farewell from the bushwalk this morning. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, James.
Thank you, Mystic Boer. Thank you. There we go. And we will see you this afternoon at 3 o'clock. Stay safe and happy wherever you are. Bye-bye.
And last thing, as we... Oh, hold on one second. I think VM spotted the tracks. I was about to show you a snake skin, but let's just see what VM's seen. between the kudu.
Right, there's like a little place I think you go there, like next to
Oh yes, I see exactly what you mean. Let's have a look. Oh, that's him. Viem's,
That's right, there you go.
Viem's a genius. And we come to the end of our our sunset safari, knowing exactly where Tingana has gone. To Simbambili. So, spent the morning following this leopard. He has led us on a merry dance through all kinds of terrain. He probably walked somewhere in the region of 20 kilometers last night, which is in miles about, what's that, 14 odd miles. So he covered a tremendous amount of ground and has ended off by taking us on a tour of our northern boundary through Buffelshoek and across now to Simbambili. And you know what the worst part of this is that his tracks are actually on top of most of the car tracks. So he walked on top in this particular area. He probably walked here first thing this morning. Just one of those things of live wildlife filming. Last thing that I wanted to show you. Liam has been on form this morning and he's actually spotted this snake skin. Now the only way for us to really tell, it's one of the smooth scaled snakes. So that could be anything from a bush snake to a cobra, a smallish one. In terms of length, it's almost complete. We just don't have the shape of the head, so we can't tell what it is. This bit's stuck together a little bit. But extending about, what's that, about 40 centimeters. Beautiful. And the only way to really determine which particular species of snake this is to count the, what's known as the caudal scales, or sort of the scales underneath the jaw, which we haven't got a full. Do you know, I can actually sort of see the eye there. Have a look there. You can just see. Of course, when a snake sheds its skin, it starts at the head. So you very seldom have an intact head piece. Your guess is as good as mine as to what snake this is. I'm not going to sit and count the scales underneath the jaw and the scales by the cloaca, which is also a way of determining what species of snake, the cloaca being the reproductive opening. You can see how the scales change there. See how it changes? And thank you very much, as we'll abandon our snake skin. I have a tendency to collect them and pop them in my car, because when you take snake skins to a city, it's actually a way of scaring people away from breaking into the car itself. A bizarre little method, but it so far has worked out relatively well. I'm going to drive away from Tingana's tracks because they're making me quite sad, but a very big thank you to Curious One, who has sent through the answer to my question about the bright pink that was covering the carcass, or the remains of the bones of that carcass. And Curious One tells me that it is a naturally occurring bacterium that has gathered there. So thank you so much for that. You did actually give me the name, but I couldn't quite hear it. Newly formed genus, not genius, well, Curious One is well on their way. Methium, what was that? I'll have a look. Curious One, I'll have a look. Methylobacterium. Methylobacterium genus. I'm going to go have a look at that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's just one of the many wonderful things that our viewers help us out with. And I'm going to say a big thank you to you all, Curious One especially, but to all of you for joining us and sending through your questions and your comments. This afternoon for the Sunset Safari, we'll have all kinds of exciting things planned, and I might go and check out what's happening on Arathusa. Thank you, Viam, for your incredible spotting skills this morning, as well as to Kirsty and Lou in final control, and to all of the rest of the WildEarth, sorry, Jerry, Kirsty and Jerry in final control. I'm starting to lose track. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. We'll catch you tomorrow. Bye-bye.